Hello everybody. So I wanted to call your attention to a couple of stories that I wrote this past week having to do with Hurricane Harvey, which, as you all know, has ravaged Houston, Texas, and surrounding areas, and is set to be one of the most costly natural disasters in the entire history of the United States, if not the most, when all is said and done, surpassing even Hurricane Katrina and Hurricane Sandy and other major hurricanes. One aspect of the damage that's been wrought that I thought merited some attention was the extent to which development projects in the Houston area had been undertaken without regard for the potential that they could exacerbate flooding conditions in the area in the event of a major weather event such as a huge hurricane. Because Houston has been known to be prone to flooding in a variety of areas, so that didn't come as a total surprise. And there have been people active in a variety of communities within Houston who have been warning for many years that if the development of Houston is allowed to just go unhindered without any steps taken to mitigate the flooding effects, then that could potentially lead to catastrophe. And we've seen many of their warnings borne out in the past couple days or the past week. Houston has seen huge population increases over the past number of years. Past couple decades, Houston's population has grown rapidly. It's now the fourth largest city in the United States, and its surrounding kind of metroplex is also growing at a huge pace. So one thing that I wanted to look into, and I did look into, and the links for everything that I'm mentioning here will be, of course, included in the description box of this video. So one thing that happens when you develop highways is that you reduce the amount of permeable surface which is available to absorb floodwater and stormwater. And there is a parkway that encircles Houston called the Grand Parkway. And, a parkway is needed in some sense, I guess, to accommodate this huge expansion of population, but at the same time, adequate steps likely were not taken to accommodate the concerns raised by various advocates in the area about how this could affect flood patterns and the susceptibility of different areas to cataclysmic flood damage. So the Grand Parkway is this big parkway in Houston, and much of it actually has only been built in the past 5 to 10 years. Parts of it are still proposed and have not been built yet. And one of these parts of the parkway, which, according to people I spoke to and people who in the area, seems to have exacerbated and accelerated the flooding of parts of West Houston. It's called Segment E. It's on the western portion of the parkway, and because of the development that this segment of the parkway spurred, there was less permeable surface available to mitigate some of the flood damage. And sure enough, the Addicks and Barker dams, which are in the area, though they weren't breached, they were put under huge strain, and there was a great deal of flooding in the vicinity related to spillway overflow from the Addicks Dam. And as of the writing of this article a couple days ago, over 3,000 homes in that area had flooded. So it's worth going back into the recent past to look at some of the concerns that were raised contemporaneously by different advocates about the utility of this parkway extension. So in 2011, the Sierra Club sued the Army Corps of Engineers, the Department of Transportation, the Federal Highway Association, and the Texas Transportation Commission after the Sierra Club had obtained an internal Army Corps of Engineers memo which conceded that this particular parkway extension could result in an increase in the volume of water that goes into the reservoirs and thereby increase the risk of, quote, catastrophic failure. That's how the Army Corps of Engineers put it. And the state of Texas opposed the lawsuit and argued that stalling construction of that particular highway extension would be too costly, would imperil economic development, that kind of thing. And wouldn't you know it, a commissioner at the Texas Department of Transportation at the time was somebody named Ned Holmes, who I reached out to for a comment and didn't hear back from. But Holmes is a wealthy real estate developer who had given at least $192,000 to Rick Perry, who was then the governor of Texas. And the governor of Texas appoints the members of the Texas Transportation Commission. And Ned Holmes was responsible for insisting that that particular highway extension project be expedited. And one of the reasons why he demanded that that project be expedited is because building it was necessary to entice ExxonMobil to relocate its North American headquarters to a location closer to the highway, which would, allow Exxon to be able to conduct, its business in that area. So here's what Holmes said at the time. Quote, Exxon representatives have stated very clearly to me that the Texas Department of Transportation moving forward on the Grand Parkway is essential, and if that did not happen, they would not select the site. So basically, Exxon was exerting leverage over this real estate developer, Holmes, who sat on the board of, who was a commissioner on this transportation commission, and pressuring him to push for the authorization of this parkway extension, notwithstanding any environmental risks. And now, unsurprisingly, the risks have been borne out. There's another proposed segment of this parkway that's been debated through the southern portion of the area, so south of Midtown Houston, and that portion of the parkway would run right through the Brazos River floodplain, where some of the most severe flooding has occurred. So that's just to say that when people talk about how some of this historic flooding that we've been witness to is unprecedented or unforeseen, it might be without precedent, but it was definitely foreseen by people who raised concerns at the time about how various development projects could worsen flooding conditions created by a large storm. Secondly, you have probably heard about the events at the Arkema chemical plant in Crosby, Texas, also obviously in the Houston area, which caught fire and for many hours had spewed chemical toxins into the air, and resulted in mass evacuations around the plant, and basically just caused an extreme environmental hazard because of the flood damage that the plant incurred. Again, the idea that this was unforeseeable doesn't pass the smell test either, because not that long ago, in June 2006, another fire occurred at the same facility in Crosby, Texas. And over the course of that fire, according to a report by the Texas Commission on Environmental Quality, there was an aerial emission of, quote, unpermitted toxins that caused 3,200 pounds of volatile organic compounds, including carbon monoxide and nitrogen oxide, to be spewed out into the air. And that event was a result of what the Texas Commission on Environmental Quality determined were, quote, a pallet of organic peroxide being stored inappropriately. So, were there steps that could have been taken to mitigate the potential or lessen the likelihood that a weather event of severe magnitude could actually cause a similar emission of toxic chemicals? I don't know for sure. That's going to take a lot of investigation and study to really determine with any specificity. But we do know that, just 11 years ago, the very same plant experienced a problem of lesser magnitude, but one that's similar in kind, and therefore should have given people insight that this plant was susceptible to cataclysmic failure in safety precautions and so forth, leading to a major toxin emission event. But here's the real kicker. After this 2006 fire, where the Texas state body, which was charged with overseeing compliance in this area, that particular fire event only resulted in a fine to Arkema that totals $3,160. So the total fine that Arkema was burdened with as a result of their negligence and complicity with a extreme pollution incident was $3,160. And now, Arkema is a multinational global corporation. It's very profitable, and which in 2016 boasted revenues of $8.9 billion. And for that one fire, the chemical fire in 2006, they were fined a pittance. I mean, you might as well fine them $1. It had no effect whatsoever on their bottom line, and it's not surprising that such a meager fine would not particularly incentivize them to take more stringent steps to prevent further events of that sort. And obviously the fire this past week is much more severe and much more hazardous environmentally, but something could have been done in the not so distant past to potentially decrease the likelihood that something like this could happen. So and then of course Arkema has a PAC which they dole out money using to various political candidates, one of whom was Representative Brian Babin, who received the most in the 2016 cycle from the Arkema PAC of any politician, of any candidate. And it's in his district that the Arkema plant lies. And he was somebody who was involved in co-sponsoring a resolution calling on the Trump administration to block a set of EPA provisions which could have potentially strengthened safety rules at the plant. Who knows if that could have actually, prevented this particular incident. It's impossible to say, but at the same time, it shows where the priorities of the politicians in that area lie. So, that'll do it for now. Please look at these articles that are on the Huffington Post within the TYT's section, and let me know what you think. So I will talk to you later. Have a great day.